Did you read the last story? This issue is even more exciting. Welcome to Subscribe. Chapter 9. The Silversmith's Workbench, Basement of the Pharmacy. Adrian placed his palm on the copper rose-carved decoration of the third layer drawer in the medicine cabinet and rotated it counterclockwise 3 times. As the hidden compartment opened, the dust it stirred up floated in the kerosene lamp. Isabella stared at the Ventru ring on his fingertip. It was engraved with the same double helix pattern as the one left by her father, but there was a faint CW1896 on the inner side, as if it had been wiped by blood. The stone steps in the basement glimmered with a cold light. The walls were nailed with yellowed parchment. Next to the freshly inked red blood cell map of type B blood was pasted an analysis of resistance in silver moon disease infected people. And in the upper right corner of each chart was drawn a tiny rose pattern, exactly the same as the birthmark on her right shoulder. In the center of the workbench was a half-formed silver dagger. The hollowed-out groove on the handle was in the shape of a 5-petal rose, with the marks of hammering still on the edge. "This is the third forging." Adrian's voice was particularly clear in the enclosed space. He took off his silver-plated gloves, revealing the crisscrossed burn marks on his palm. The first one was in 1895, right after Charlotte was sent to the Ventru's Immortality Laboratory. His fingertips slid across the dagger's prototype, and a blue light suddenly appeared on the metal surface. The unique tremor of stigmata silver. They said that half-breed genes could stabilize the virus, but Charlotte ... Isabella's attention was drawn to the glass slide on the workbench. 3 drops of blood were suspended on the slide. 2 of them were from infected people, showing a turbid fluorescent color, and the third was hers. In the translucent serum, the red blood cells were slowly rotating in a double helix structure, exactly the same as the form of the first-generation virus in the Underground's Palace mural in Chapter 4. "I used to be the youngest silversmith at the Ventru." Adrian took out a leather-bound notebook from the hidden compartment. The name Charlotte on the cover was scribbled over and blurred. "We crafted stigmata silver weapons for the council to execute blood race members. Until in 1894 they started capturing type B blood humans." He flipped to a certain page, and Isabella saw her father's photo pinned in the middle, with a note beside it. "Dr. Moreau, type AB blood, associated with vessel plan 07. With a clatter, the silver tweezers dropped to the ground. When Isabella picked them up, she found CW engraved on the inner side, which was exactly the abbreviation on the inner side of Adrian's wedding ring. Charlotte was a researcher on human blood symbiosis from the Bruya faction. He looked towards the iron cabinet in the corner, where 3 urns were placed, one of which was engraved with a rose pattern. She discovered that the Ventru were secretly cultivating half-breed embryos, trying to create immortal beings with the first-generation blood, just like the project your father was involved in. Isabella's fingers stroked the groove on the dagger handle. The warmth of her body made a very faint engraving appear on the metal surface. A1896. These were the initials of Adrian's wife, and the arc of the groove was clearly polished according to the outline of her birthmark. This knife was supposed to pierce the heart of the Ventru prince. Adrian's voice suddenly became hoarse. But before Charlotte was executed, she used her blood to draw this shape on the prison wall. A rose exactly like your birthmark. Under the microscope, the blood cells in Isabella's blood suddenly started spinning faster. The double helix structure split into 7 segments, corresponding to the directions of the 7 reliquaries in the mural in Chapter 7. Your father forged your death certificate back then. Adrian pointed to the wall pasted with a map of the Paris sewer system. Red dots marked the 1918, where the rat swarm gathered, and the Arctic coordinates. He hid you in a human orphanage, but he himself was regarded as the vessel by the council. The iron cabinet suddenly let out a beep. Adrian rushed towards the brass telescope in the corner. The lens was aimed at the underground palace of Notre Dame. The blood-colored liquid overflowing from the crack in the sarcophagus was spreading along the sewer, outlining a double helix trajectory identical to that of her blood cells on the map. "The airships of the Dracula faction are unloading at the North Station." He tore off a fragment of the blood codex from the wall. "They're going to test the new serum on type B blood children." Isabella's fingertips slid across the workbench and found her father's research notes pressed at the bottom. One page depicted the star map of the underground palace of Notre Dame, with a note beside the Arctic coordinates. Isabella's embrace will activate the resonance between the two poles. And in Adrian's forging log, the entry for November 20th, 1897, read, "Envy's daughter has a rose-shaped birthmark. Charlotte's dagger might be able to awaken the purification genes in her body." An alarm sounded from the medicine cabinet. Adrian suddenly turned around, only to see Isabella staring at the third layer of the iron cabinet, where 3 blood-stained lab coats were placed, with MV, CW, and AW on the collars, respectively. "Those belong to your mother and Charlotte." He held her cold wrist. In 1890, they met in the laboratory and planned to steal the first-generation blood sample, ... The sound of glass breaking came from the first floor. Adrian quickly closed the iron cabinet. Isabella caught a glimpse of a photo frame at the very back. In the winter of 1895, her father, Charlotte, and Adrian were standing in front of the forging table. The baby girl in her father's arms had a faint trace of a rose-shaped birthmark around her neck. "They said your mother died in childbirth." Adrian stuffed the silver dagger into her palm. The groove on the handle fit her birthmark perfectly. "But the umbilical cord blood test report shows that your blood had already integrated the first-generation virus at birth." The sound of boots crushing glass came from downstairs. Adrian suddenly pushed her towards the hidden door. "Go north along the sewer. There's a Bruya contact point at the end." But Isabella's gaze was fixed on the scene under the microscope. When her blood came into contact with the infected sample, the double helix structure actually started to repair the broken gene chain of the other, just like the scene in the mural in Chapter 7, where the blood of the Holy Maiden sealed the virus. "They don't want your life." Adrian took out 3 silver-plated pistols from the iron cabinet. "The Ventru want to extract your blood to make an immortality potion, and the Dracula want to cultivate you into a virus symbiote, just like what they did to Charlotte." He pointed to the glass bottle on the top layer of the iron cabinet, in which was soaked half of an arm with a rose-shaped birthmark. "I snatched this from the incinerator in 1896. It was Charlotte's last ... The ground suddenly shook, and a blood-colored light came from the direction of Notre Dame. Isabella felt the engraving on the inner side of the dagger handle. The newly emerged MV1897 was side by side with AW, the initials of her mother's surname. "You've known who I was since the day at the Opera House." She took a half, stepped back and knocked over the coordinate model on the workbench. The line connecting the Arctic ice layer and Notre Dame in Paris passed right through the position of her heart. "When my father was executed, was this groove the only thing missing from the silver dagger in your hand?" Adrian's pupils contracted. The characteristic double helix patterned military boots of the Dracula could be heard from downstairs. "In 1890, I did pierce your father's heart with this knife." He ripped open his shirt, revealing the trial mark of the Ventru Council branded on his left chest. "But before he died, he stuffed the ring into my hand and said, 'Find Charlotte. She will show you the truth in the ice layer.' That's when I knew that your mother's blood had long been injected into the reliquary." Suddenly, there was a knock on the hidden door. Adrian stuffed his pocket, watch into Isabella's hand. "At the winter solstice in 1897, when the polar night ends, there will be a crack in the ice layer. Your blood can open the entrance, just like when you activated the underground palace mural." His fingers slid across the North Star chart on the inner side of the pocket. "Watch." It was exactly the same as the manuscript on the back of the City Hall list in Chapter 5. Charlotte drew the design of this knife in her diary. Each notch of the rose pattern on the handle corresponds to the number of times she was injected with the virus. Suddenly, the lights in the laboratory went out. The blood-colored moonlight shone in through the air vent, illuminating Adrian quickly assembling a silver crossbow bolt. The shape of the arrowhead was an exact match to the depression in the center of her birthmark. "They're here." He stuffed a crossbow bolt into her hand. "Remember, the weakness of the Dracula's serum warriors is in the heart, and the Ventru judges..." Before he could finish, the iron cabinet was suddenly blown open. 3 hunters wearing gas masks rushed in, aiming their guns at Isabella's forehead. Adrian's silver-plated pistol fired almost simultaneously. The bullets burst into blue light on the hunters' chests, but they saw double helix chips identical to those on the blood, tack strain embedded in their throats. The serum guards of the Dracula faction. Mr. White, the council has grown impatient. The hunter leader opened his trench coat, revealing a silver gallows of the Ventru judge hanging on his chest. The blood of the vessel can allow us to walk in the sunlight, and the ashes of your wife, ... double quotes. He kicked over the iron cabinet, and Charlotte's urn rolled out. Are just right for forging a weapon to restrain her. Isabella instinctively stabbed the silver dagger at the opponent's wrist, but the moment it touched the blood, she saw a memory. In the winter of 1896, Adrian mixed the ashes into the molten silver in the forging room. Sparks splashed onto the design drawing, exactly filling the notch of the rose pattern. Exactly the same as her posture of holding the dagger at this moment. You've been planning to use me for experiments. As she stepped back, she knocked over the microscope, and the blood on the slide formed the Arctic coordinates on the ground. Adrian's silver crossbow pierced through the hunter's throat. He grabbed her wrist and rushed towards the hidden door. I was there when Charlotte was injected with the virus. His voice drowned out the growing roar of the approaching mechanical hounds. Your father used his own blood to forge a death certificate for the vessel, and I just wanted Charlotte's sacrifice to be meaningful. The hidden door closed with a bang behind me. Isabella stared at the dagger in her palm. The rose pattern was absorbing her blood, and the complete engraving appeared on the inner side of the handle. Guided by the ashes of Charlotte White, may the holder always remember, the virus is both a curse and a gift. In the distance, there was a loud noise of Adrian fighting the pursuers. The pocket watch in her hand was getting hot, and the hands were pointing at the starry sky of the winter solstice in 1897. This issue ends here. The next issue will be even more exciting. Subscribe as soon as possible.